I started as an engineer too, actually. So I was hired at this. So if we think about the full progression of titles at Spotify right now, you start as associate engineer, then you get promoted to engineer 1, engineer 2, senior engineer, senior staff, principal, and there's one super principal engineer, which is our VP of engineering. I think their official title is senior architect or something, but there is just one person, so not worrying about that for now. So yeah, I started as an engineer too. It was in 2018. It took me very little time to get to senior engineer, and actually I didn't have to do much for that. I just had to, prove that I'm working on senior engineer level, and my manager handled everything for me. So one day they just told me, okay, you're promoted to senior engineer now. Nowadays the process is quite a bit more involved because you need to prove, you need to have a business case, you need to write a promotion package. But getting to staff engineer from senior engineer is a process, of course. You need to know that you want to become a staff engineer first. You need to gather information. It's overall in the industry, maybe there is not enough information right now about what staff engineer does. It definitely wasn't when I started. Today there is many more resources. There is many more resources that talk about how you become a staff engineer, what staff engineers do, maybe what staff engineer means at different companies. I brought some books with me that I'm going to be showing later. But specifically talking about my progression from senior to staff at Spotify is the very first step is becoming a very solid senior engineer. So you need to be the person that gets things done in a scope of one squad. So you usually work in a team, you usually have an engineering manager and a product manager, and they handle all the business communication for you, stakeholder management. They shape up the roadmap, they shape up the priorities. You end up with tasks in your backlog, maybe in Jira, and you are able to pick up a task, be very autonomous in solving it, produce excellent code, manage to release it, manage to monitor how the release went, manage to be able to debug, A/B test, write tests for it, present how your code works, write documentation. So all of those things that real good senior engineers do. And
when you say one squad, how many people is that?
It depends as usual, but it's maybe 5 to 7 people. It evolved a lot what we mean by squads over time, because we used to include design functions in it and QA and project management. Not anymore. Like right now, squads at Spotify don't have design and user research and data science in them as members. But let's say 5 engineers plus PM and EM.
Okay, good. So the first step, like the foundation, is just being a solid senior engineer. Okay.
Yeah. And
what kind of project you would tackle as a senior engineer? Like, can you give an example? Like, what you've been working on, like as a senior?
As a senior, I have been working on the Spotify Lite product, which is an Android application for growing markets for constrained phones with focus on performance. So we created a separate application that is not the main Spotify client. It was meant for growing markets. It was very small, started up fast. It had a focus on fast playback times, less data usage, less memory usage, less storage usage, all the good performance things for constrained, cheaper Android phones. And the tasks would, for example, look like, oh, there is a new feature coming out on Spotify, and our playback library already supports it, but you need to implement UI in the Lite app because it's different. So that's one task. Add a specific feature to the UI of the Lite app. And that's, you have a task, you break it down into subtasks, create pull requests, you test it, roll it out. That's maybe one unit of work that you can feel proud of.
Okay. So basically, you need to consistently deliver features in an autonomous manner as a senior. Okay.
Yes, and of course, there's different levels of seniors. At some point, you're gonna do more and more things of leadership, of communication, stakeholder management. Sometimes you will write an RFC with architecture proposal. You will consult with your staff engineers. You might have a unit of work that touches on other squads or teams at Spotify, and you will need to manage communication, manage delivery timeline, manage solve the blockers, find ways around the challenges. But everything revolves around one squad, very defined piece of work.
Okay. Then what comes next? Like, what's the difference between senior and staff engineer, and like how the process of becoming one looks like?
Yeah, very good question, because there is no definitive answer to it. Basically, the difference, at least at Spotify, between a staff level engineer is that they work more cross squad and maybe even cross mission level at Spotify, and the scope of projects is much bigger and less defined. So if as a senior engineer you're given a task of deliver this feature, which is very time bound and very clear, whom do you need to talk to, how do you approach solving it? For a staff engineer, it's more around, okay, here's a project. We think that the company needs this. How do we get from this very loosely defined business requirement to actually producing some solution for it? And then you don't know what the solution is, you don't know how to approach it, you don't know who is involved, and then you start breaking up that task, and you venture more into stakeholder management, influencing people, finding the right solutions, building your own if there is no existing solution. There is a lot of architecture involved, definitely communication. Sometimes you're going to be a product manager for a project. Sometimes you're going to be the delivery lead. Sometimes you will start up a work stream, which is like a separate team that is not an already existing team, and you will need to set up the team, the working rituals, and the team, Scrum, whatever you pick, the board, and take on different hats basically for making the project happen. And then getting there from the senior engineer is, first, you definitely need to be a trusted expert. You need to be the person that people come to for consulting, and they know that you're a proven expert in an area. You also need some sponsors. Sponsors are people that know you, that they know you have a proven track record of completed good things, and they would recommend you to be chosen for leading a project. So it can be your manager, it can be your mentor, it can be other people that you worked with at the company before. Whenever someone comes to them and says, we need to ship this, whom do you talk to? And they say, oh, you need to talk to Slava, because Slava knows stuff. That's a point when you get access to the opportunities.
Who was such a person in your case, like your manager or a product manager?
In my case, it was a few people. It was my mentor, definitely. It was my manager, of course, and it was a senior staff engineer from another mission at my company that I worked with on a big project to ship different things that touched on. To explain better, basically, I work in this part of Spotify that is tasked with growth. It used to be monthly active users growth, and now it's revenue growth, but it's all around growth, so like growth hackers, right? And because we worked on the Spotify Lite application, and with application performance, we had to interact a lot with the client platform people, those that build the infrastructure for building and releasing the application. So we spent a lot of time communicating with them, building good stuff together, shipping, and I had good sponsors there as well.
Okay, so you had some kind of a relationships with like high-profile people around you in the company. Did you build those relationships like consciously, like, hey, I need some recommendations for a promotion, so I will friend with this guy and this guy and this girl, or it just became naturally through your work?
For me, it came naturally, but I cannot, like, if you have a goal to get to staff level, you definitely need those connections. So you will consciously or unconsciously build those. In my case, it was just I was working as usual and shipping great stuff and making those connections along the way, because I have worked at Spotify for 5 years. I don't know if I mentioned. And during those times, it was a lot of different projects, both as a senior engineer and as a team lead, that build those connections. But I want to get to the next step, which is it's not enough to have connections. It's not enough to have sponsors and people that know you and trust you. You also need to get a little bit lucky, and also you need to have good judgment on what is important for the company, because when you're writing the promotion package and you've proven that you are operating consistently on a staff level already, you need to show what is your impact on the company. And impact on the company means both impact on the engineering culture, one, but also impact on the company metrics. And that can be like, I don't know, in my area at that time, the main metric was growth in monthly active users year over year. And if you directly contribute to that, and you can prove that you contributed with a significant amount consistently over time, I don't know how that is defined, but it's not just once. It's like consistent work towards your mission goals. If you have that, and you have support from your sponsorship, and you have good feedback, you have shown growth, that gets you promoted that gets you confirmed that you're staff engineer. You get the title.
So that sounds like very far away from the technical stuff. So you're talking about like business metrics, building relationships, proving your work, and so on. So this sounds like soft skills, let's say. And to me, it sounds like you need the technical foundation, but that's not enough, absolutely, to have a next career goal. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not enough. It only having the technical expertise and only having like being a very solid engineer on a team level gets you to a senior level. That's my understanding, at least. That's what is true in my area. Expectations, I think, shifted a little bit because when I started at Spotify, it was like 4,000 people maybe, and we had this period of extreme growth. Maybe his expectations changed a little bit, but yeah, you need to develop a wide range of skills. Those are soft, or you can name those different names, right? It's not only soft.
Wait, 1 second. So first of all, I want to say that we have chat for the translation, and you can post your questions there. So if they fit the narrative I will ask them, we will talk about that a little bit. This is first thing. Second thing is we already have a question from Olga. Thanks a lot for the question. So is this sponsor role that you're describing, is it like something official or something unofficial? Is it like?
It can be both, right? So definitely when you write your promotion package, there is a sponsor that submits your package, but that is usually your manager or your area lead. But unofficial sponsors, they would just in conversations promote your work.
Okay, thank you. Let's go further.
Okay, I don't know if I completed answering my questions, but you need both being senior engineer, and you need visibility into work, and you need proven impact, and that is what you put in your promotion package whenever you actually just it.
Yeah, you mentioned the company KPIs, like or business goals, right? Like the monthly active users and so on. So this sounds like a business KPI. So how, like, what level of business understanding is required from a staff engineer?
I don't know what is the minimum required level. I don't know how to explain it, but you definitely need to understand the business. And at Spotify, for our steps of promotion process, we have some metrics of expected and exemplary behaviors, and one whole section is dedicated to understanding the business challenges and impact. And that is what you get feedback on in your regular performance review cycle, and that's what you also describe in your promotion package. You need to have the ability to understand what is important for the company and if you're for your mission and for your area right now, and only working on the most important stuff. It doesn't matter if you're staff engineer, or it doesn't matter if you're senior engineer that never really picks the right things to work on. If you're working on something that has no impact on anything at the company, then that is not appreciated, let's say. I don't want to say it's not important, but it's not appreciated for the promotion bit.
Okay, in my experience, always when you have a team, you will have a backlog from different projects, right? And there are, like, in our case, there's a direct impact either in percentage of generated market value on the projected profit, or I don't know, like compliance percentages and so on and so on. You obviously can look at those numbers, but how do you choose what is the project that you should be working on explicitly if you're targeting the promotion to a staff position?
That is the biggest challenge, right? Because when you're working on the team, you're not always really selecting what you're going to work on. First, of course, your manager, you need to talk with your manager. You need to let them know that you want to grow, you want to have more challenges, and they need to understand the context, and they need to understand what kind of different projects are available for you. We do have this concept of internal mobility at Spotify, where you can, if you want to acquire new skills, you can embed with another team for a quarter, for example, and work on their project and help them and learn. But ultimately, it comes to your manager to provide you with opportunities. It's not like I can suddenly jump out of my squad and go work on another project for 6 months.
So you need to explicitly ask your manager to do this? Like, hey, I want to become a staff, give me a project that will allow this. Or
I think
how it works?
I have not seen many managers where they would explicitly tell you, you know what, you might make a good staff engineer. Let's get you some projects, right? It comes the other way around. You want to be challenged. You feel like you have grown to a certain level, and you feel like you want to go to the next level. Of course, not anyone might be interested in the staff engineer position, because it's different from the senior engineer on a squad. But if you feel that you want more challenges, you definitely talk to your manager or your sponsor and find the opportunities. And then when the chance presents itself, like, there are different situations. Maybe your manager got promoted and they didn't find a stand-in manager in your squad for a bit, and there's an opportunity for you to take on the delivery manager skills, or managing the people a little bit, or managing the project, like taking on some parts of those and proving that you can work and you learn to work in that way. That is useful.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that you need to explicitly say that you want to grow in such position so that your manager can help you with that. And you also need to find the opportunities how to build up the skills that will allow you to do the job in the first place.
Yeah. And I think that's the number one complaint that many people that want to grow have, that they don't have enough opportunities. And there's different ways to solve that. You can, if you feel like you're not challenged enough, you can either, at Spotify, you can embed with another squad for a while and maybe switch the squads. to find a more challenging job matching your skills. Another radical option is to just quit the company and go look for opportunities someplace else, or maybe even interview into a staff role position.
Okay. You said that the finding the impactful project is a challenge. Was it the biggest challenge for you in particular, or you faced something else?
Yeah, I think for me that was definitely one of the challenges, because finding work outside the squad, or like cross squad work, to prove that you have some skills, or like to build the skills first, right? You don't even know when you start working on this, you don't even know what the full scope of skills that you need to build are. So you need to find that out somehow. I actually brought some books today. This one came out recently, the Software Engineer's Guidebook.
This is from Jerzy Waters, right? So this Pragmatic Engineer newsletter.
Exactly. That's the knowledge you had to pick from his newsletter for years. Now it's all compiled into one book. I can totally recommend it. It's quite thick as well. And literally, when I was preparing for this, I opened the contents and you read out loud what it says here, and that's basically the skill sets that you need to acquire. He in a lot of detail describes all the skills that are expected from a solid engineer. It might vary from job to job. It might vary from depending on your situation in your team, but that is like the full scope. And then you pick and choose what you really need, what you really want to develop in. So get into a solid engineer level. That's one thing. And then yes, you look for challenges and opportunities to grow further. To maybe you didn't have enough challenges in managing the delivery of a product, for example, and you want to find that. That's a skill that might get you to the next level.
Okay. So I lost my question in the process. So we found out the biggest challenge is like finding opportunity and then building up the skills, right? Yeah, I recalled my question. So what was the project that actually brought you to the staff engineer position? Like what is the biggest impactful thing on this promotion case you had, and like how you ended up on this project, what you were doing on there, and what you delivered in the end?
So there have been a few things. So one was around building the Android community at Spotify and building the guild meetings and all the discussion forum for Android engineers at Spotify. That was one impactful engineering thing. The actual project that had business impact was after working on the Spotify Lite application. At some point, we started thinking about improving the actual Spotify app for growing markets, so that the performance is better and more people can use that instead of switching to another app. Because when you have a separate Spotify Lite app, the updates might not get there, like the features might not get there in time, because it's a limited subset of the code. Not everything is immediately picked up in the Spotify Lite app.
Did you have any business KPIs or metrics that you had to achieve in order to have the projects like treated as successful?
Yes, we did. So maybe we need to talk a little bit how projects work at Spotify, but there was a company bet with a goal for monthly active users. We had a predicted number. We had a few ideas on how to achieve that in different areas of performance metrics. All those ideas came from us, from our squad, from working on for years on the Spotify Lite application, gathering all that knowledge, gathering all the knowledge on tooling and debugging, gathering metrics in the real world when the app is actually used, having some sensible targets for those metrics, and having ideas on how to improve the actual code. So you have to change the code, have to change the binary, ship it and measure it. And that's how we did it. It was quite a big project because it involved many parts of the company. It involved changes in the infrastructure of building and releasing the app. It required managing stakeholders, talking to some teams owning the features, structuring the work stream, communicating about the results, doing the actual A/B tests to prove that there's actual improvement in, like, is there an actual causality link between improving the mobile app performance and growing metrics? Well, yes, there is. I cannot tell you how much. You will have to find it out for your app or by yourself.
Yeah. How do you do it? Like you try to find some correlation between the like reverse correlation between the app size and the amount of users, or like average sessions, like how it works?
There is a few ways to do it. So the obvious way is to do A/B testing. A/B testing is hard with like these global changes of the app because you change the binary and you expect to ship the same binary to different users and see how they you look at activation rates of the app. Like,
okay,
did the user even manage to download the app from the Play Store first? Then did they actually manage to unpack it and install? Did they actually manage to go through the registration process? Then did they manage to get to the home screen? Did they manage to start playback? Like all of those metrics. So A/B testing is one thing, and then there is the other way of inferred causality measuring. When you look at a few markets, you predict what the behavior is in those markets before you launch anything and before you change anything. Like you take in a lot of the data around how markets behave in those times. Like, there is seasonality in there's dependency on campaigns. You take in all the noise and you build a model to predict how it would behave without your changes. And then you make it.
So you start with a hypothesis, first of all.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like any A/B test, you start with the hypothesis that there exists causality between, for example, application download size and how many users activate the app in this market. Then you build a model that predicts what would happen without your changes in one market. Then you launch a few markets and you see and you compare the markets to extract any noise. I'm explaining this in very lame terms. I'm not a data scientist, but I looked at a lot of that data. And basically, you build a model, you launch your app, you compare the markets, you remove the noise, and then if that market is very different from the other ones, like significantly different, then you can say, yeah, it's actually my change that caused it, because I launched it in several markets. They behaved like before. They were according to the model that we predicted before starting to observe it, and then that one particular market is very different. So you observe that.
So you're literally measuring if your particular feature is making the impact, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least that's a tangible result. This is not like I was working on this feature and so on. This is something that you can present to business people.
Yeah, this may be a big difference in Spotify between other, I don't know. Lots of companies try to do it the data-driven way, but I think at Spotify we have it really top-notch. Like we have a lot of thinking involved in planning experiments and analyzing the results and actually documenting the results. And now you know that there is causality. It's not like one time you implement these changes, you measure and you're happy, get promoted, you move on. You actually have to ensure that it doesn't get worse over time, because we have established this link. I built tooling to detect significant changes to the download size. And every time, like as a developer, if you commit something and you are unaware that it's grown the download size that much, it gives you, like in GHE, there is a check that tells you, stop, give it a little bit more thought. This is why. And then it links you to all the data we have on increasing the download size, how it affects the constraint users.
Okay. That sounds pretty complex. Do you get demoted if the metrics worsen?
No, That's another very good thing about the Spotify culture. You do not get punished for taking risks.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, that's important one.
the whole post-mortem incident process where there, without assigning blame, you look at what happened, how we could have prevented it, how we can fix it. No one gets blamed. You actually learn from the experience rather than, oh, you messed up, you're fired.
Okay, let's talk more about this engineering culture, because you touched this on blameless postmortems. That's a good thing. I think a lot of companies do that. However, there are exclusions where, like, our junior dropped the production database, we fired him. Like, what the hell? Don't do that, please. So can you elaborate more, like, what's there in engineering culture aside of postmortems is making the environment so great?
Yeah. When I was preparing for this question, I didn't even know how to describe the whole engineering culture. I think it's a set of things that you start working at the company, you observe, you learn how others do it, and you continue doing it. That's how the culture spreads. But I think if I have a few like notable things that I noticed and could think about as important and maybe different from other companies where I used to work before. So the very first thing for me is focus on learning and growth. So you always have mentorship, or you can find mentorship if you want to, but you are always encouraged by your manager to do so, to learn and grow. You will always get feedback support, either from your manager or mentor or your peers. Like you get feedback on your behaviors. Like, hey, Slava, you're doing this great, but I think you could be doing this as well. And you think about it. Is it true or not? It's up to you. But then sometimes you discover things like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. I need to develop this particular area. And you try to find challenges and try to acquire those skills, try to get some learning courses, read some books, whatever ways you have to acquire new skills. Then I called out the no blame culture. Always, we not only have post-mortem exercises, we also have pre-mortem exercises, where before launching something very risky, you sit down and imagine all the scenarios, how it can go wrong. You very rarely guess the actual scenarios, but you at least go through the process of handling an incident situation.
So this is kind of a risk management, right? Identifying the risks and trying to come up with the mitigation strategies.
Yeah. Then I want to call out that we have a lot of freedom in picking a solution. So we don't have architect roles at Spotify that need to review and approve everything you do. It's rather you have a problem, you come up with a solution. You usually document it in something like a tech spec or an RFC document, which stands for request for comments.
Yeah,
and then
we have the same Bolt. Mm-hmm.
And then you ask different people that you think either are stakeholders or experts on the matter. You ask them to comment, and they would usually they just help you to highlight different things that you might not have thought about, or provide you more context for different decisions. Like, yes, this would be a good solution, but we have this legacy that needs to be supported for years and years. So maybe for that cohort of the users, the solution is not going to work. And maybe so in the end, it influences what solution you go with. And two more things. One is everyone gets to contribute independent of the title. Again, if you're in an RFC, it doesn't matter who brings you feedback. It can be a staff engineer, it can be engineer too. You take all the feedback. You give everyone a chance to be voicing their ideas. And it's up to you, of course, to decide how you want to approach making a decision. Is it consent, or is it forgot the other word? Consensus versus consent, right?
Yeah.
Consensus is when everybody agrees that this is the best solution, and consent is, not everybody agrees, but we agree to disagree and go forward. the decision. Right?
Do you have this strange feeling when you go through the comments and then you find the person with like VP of engineering title and you're having everything cold inside? You're like, oh no, I need to write something very smart here.
I don't, but also I've been at the company for a very long time, so maybe it's different for new starters, but at least we try to encourage everyone to contribute in the same way and not look at the title. Like really, I wouldn't mind if my title was removed from everywhere, so that people don't actually know who is commenting, so that you remove this bias. Because I know there's culture differences and not everything can be enforced, right? The engineering culture, it grows itself. Like you can't write a humongous document and expect everyone to read it and follow. Oh, okay, so this is the Spotify culture. You never look at the title. Like situations, I think, right?
Yeah, that doesn't work that way. Like people are learning by example, not by the documents. So they would rather see what you're doing and do the same rather than following the doc.
Absolutely. And well, at least in the staff engineer role, you try to spread the culture, try to show good examples, try to call out those things explicitly. So like when you go into an incident review, you start by saying, this is a no blame session where we go through what happened, how we could have prevented it, right? So just calling out the expectations right away.
Okay.
And
Good.
the last thing to call out on engineering culture, we have lots of fun doing things. Like even the most boring things you can approach. You work with great people. There is always someone with expert knowledge on any topic you can pick. And we have fun working together. We create local memes, local jokes. It's in the culture.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot for this. Diving into the culture. What you mentioned from all of this was, learning on a continuous basis. Can you give some hints, like how to do that? Is it like attending courses or reading books, or maybe you have some internal learning programs inside Spotify? Anything?
Yeah, we actually have one of the perks of Spotify is an amazing internal learning program where you can pick any skill and there will be a learning course. Some courses are even in person. I especially like the feedback session where you are taught to give feedback. And to give feedback to people, you need to feel safe. And like, how do you build safety? Well, you start bonding with people. You go into different situations, you discuss different things. It's a really amazing. It's actually taught by artists from stand-up theater. Like what is it called? Improvisation theater actors. They teach you to bond with people and to feel comfortable in different situations, and then you build this bond with a team. Like usually the whole team attends those, and then you feel more safe in the team, and then you can give feedback. That's actually quite amazing. But there is a lot more courses. We have access to LinkedIn Learn as well. Like if you need something specific, and if you want to see someone rant about a topic for 30 minutes, that could have been one sentence. But internal education is great. Then you definitely get budget for attending conferences, and you have a learning budget. So you can either spend it on attending a conference or buying expensing a ticket for a conference. Or you can buy a box.
Yeah.
For online courses you need.
Yeah, that's a good thing that the company is sponsoring the learning of their engineers so they can grow and make more impact for the company. That's great. We have something similar in both, with just limited budget, and you're free to spend on whatever learning you want, aside from learning how to ski, because that's probably not going to help you in your career progression. But everything else, yeah, sure, go ahead. We're touching on the sensitive topics right now, like budget and so on. So let's talk about the compensation. I'm not asking for exact figures, sure, but I'm wondering like how the compensation is structured in the first place, and how it changes going from like engineer 2 to senior engineer to staff engineer, like how it changes.
Yeah. the famous senior engineer answer. It depends, right? It depends
Yeah.
on which year you were hired in. It is very well known that getting salary increase within a company is a much slower process than switching between roles and starting a new company, because the salary, like total compensation growth is faster than usually the companies increase compensation within the company. But then there are differences for Spotify because it's a publicly traded company, and it can provide you with some option, like employee stock option programs. And Spotify also does retention bonuses. So like if you get promoted, they usually want you to stay in that role for a while and not just suddenly leave the company. So quite often on top of your base salary, you get a retention bonus that only gets paid out if you keep working for a year from promotion.
Okay, this is the first time I heard about this. Yeah, retention policy.
It
Sounds good.
It might be a new thing related to laying off people to decrease the headcount in the company. And of course, when that happens, it's not a very nice event for anyone, and people get disillusioned. And maybe that's when retention makes sense, because you don't want the knowledge to leave, right? There is always a balance between having all the context in one's head and isolating the knowledge and have this knowledge silo, and they will leave. You will lose all this knowledge. But also, you need experts, and the experts have to stay. But on the actual sums, there's a lot of sites to compare salaries. Levels.fyi, right? Levels.for your information. Glassdoor. You can reach out to people on LinkedIn who work at the company and ask them bluntly and directly how much do they own.
Okay. So this is how you compare, but what's the structure? So you mentioned stock units, you mentioned retention bonuses, and you mentioned the salary itself. Is it all? How one compare to one another? Like, do you have a ratio between the amount of stock options and the salary itself, or it's absolutely arbitrary?
Really depends, right, on the year, on your manager, on the budget for the area. Really hard to say, and I don't have visibility into that either. I can tell you that my salary grew by 15% between senior and staff engineer.
15.
But about 15%.
Okay. What is the change year to year if you're remaining in a senior position?
Year to year, it depends on the country where you're working. There is always base level that everybody gets an increase, and then on top of that, your increase depends on your performance. So you get a performance review by your manager. If they think you overperform, they will either increase your salary by a higher percentage than everyone else, of course, depending on their budget, or grant you a new employee stock option grant, also depending on the team budget and studio budget. But for example, last year in Sweden, I think it was 3.7%, the base increase.
Okay.
So everybody gets that. And then if you overperform, it can go up to 7% or 10%. It also depends where in the band you are. The bands for every role, they're very wide. And if you started a very long time ago and your salary is very low, then usually managers try to optimize it so that you get a high increase than people who already earn more than the average. But then again, every individual case is very different.
Yeah, sure.
You will have to talk it through with your manager, and then depending on and the situation on the market and the willingness of the company to retain you, and lots of other factors.
Yeah, key to everything is talking to the manager and managing expectations. Okay. My question was, I lost the question again. I don't know what's happening with my mind. Okay. So
balance technical and leadership skills, maybe.
leadership skills. Okay, yeah. Let's get back to this one. You're kind of spoiled that I shared the probable questions with you. So yeah, but I typically do that.
Not the questions, but the topics, right?
Yeah,
So
topics. Yeah.
at least I knew what topics to look at in the.
Yeah,
Sure.
I wonder if we wrapped up the compensation expectations. So like, yeah, I got that you can have a significantly more change in the compensation when you get a new level, of course, because I believe that the band is wider. So yeah, you can get more. Okay, and that's of course location dependent and manager dependent and so on. Okay. Are you aware about any calibration things when like do you know how your compensation is compared to other people's in the same position, like the staff engineer in a different squad? I don't know.
Yeah, as usual, it is not encouraged to share your salary by your employer, but employees still talk to each other and they share. So I have a general understanding of the range, probably, of the band, but there's no like public place where I can go and compare like, I earned this and that person earns that. And then there is also very wide difference between stock option packages because the market is unpredictable, and depending on your start date, you get different strike prices. And depending on that, you might be very happy with a low salary, but a huge stock option package that
Okay.
has a strike.
Can you ask your manager about like, hey, can we put more on the stock pile and less on the cash side, or it's like defined by the overall?
Oh yeah. If you're asking about that, actually, when I started, I didn't have an option to choose. But nowadays, when you get a stock option package at Spotify, you can allocate different parts of it. So the minimum graduality that you can split it into is to like 25%, and then the options you have are cash, RSUs, so restricted stock units, then at the market stock options and over the market stock options. And the difference is in risk and the difference in how many you get. So like cash you get 1-to-1, RSUs you get 1-to-1 minus the tax you have to pay and the benefit. At the market stock options, there's less of those, but they're more risky. And then over the market, like you get 3 times more stock options, I think, but the price has to increase like 150%.
What is over the market? Like I'm not familiar with the term.
You agree to more risk, basically. Your strike price is at 150% of the day you got the stock options.
Oh,
so say
okay.
You start working today and the stock price is $100. And if you get at the market, you get say 10 options at 100% strike, at $100 strike. If you get over the market, then you get 20 options, but at $115 strike. So your risk is higher, but you get more.
Okay, got it.
Then you can allocate by 25%. You can like say,
okay. And
25% cash and 75% options.
Yeah. And it's usual those options are vested over like 4-year periods, right? And then you can sell them.
And the cliff is, I don't remember, something sensible like 6 months.
Cliff is still applied for the new grants?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Do you have any yearly bonuses or anything? No, nothing like that. Okay.
And it's all these cliffs and everything, all the conditions depend on when you start and where you start working at. So whatever I say can be very wildly different. Like on average, you can expect that, but then there are possibilities that it changes.
Okay. I think that's good. So, what are the next steps? Like, how does the career progression look for you?
Well, there is 2 more levels: senior staff and principal engineer at Spotify. the differences in the amount of projects you're handling and the abstraction level, I'd say. Like you get less hands. Of course, when you tackle more projects on the company level, you have less time for hands-on work or spending more time with a team or with a mission within the company. Yeah, I'm not thinking.
Have you already discussed it with your manager? Like, I want to be a senior staff. Like, what should be done?
No, I think my goal for now is like becoming a really solid staff engineer. Like, out of all the space of different skills I can learn, and out of all of those, there's like a specific set that I need right now and that is important, and that my manager thinks are important right now versus a year from now. So the focus isn't on developing that, helping others grow, mentoring people, shipping stuff.
Okay. So more impactful projects for you. Okay, let's talk about the leadership skills, because usually people seeing like couple of possibilities how to grow from a senior position. They're either searching for looking at the engineering manager's track, where you're people manager, like pure leadership, right? And then this staff engineer track, when you think that you would be doing like just more hardcore engineering. But you said that you need like project management skills, like leadership skills, and so on. Can you elaborate on those?
Yeah, I think the expectation you need to have that you're not going to be attached to any team anymore as a staff engineer. You're going to be more on the project level, and depending on who works with that project, is it a different work stream, is it different teams, are there dedicated people for doing it? What does the situation look for this project right now? Like, is it the most important thing at the company, and you get all kinds of roles assigned to it? Like you can get, a designer that designs diagrams for your project, and you can get an architect, you can get a product manager, project manager, all kinds of roles, and QA. There is other situations where you're testing out an idea and the company doesn't yet know that it's important for it, and you're like 3 people on a work stream, and you have to do pretty much everything. You have to set up the team, you have to be the engineering manager for the work stream for a while, set up the board, set up the Scrum rituals for the team, like get the process going, write about architecture, be the product manager for your project, like advertising it, making connections, proving that it is needed, like proving the value of it. So it's a lot of different things and situations you can find yourself in. So like staff engineer only means that you're on the technical side, so you're not dedicated to managing people. You usually don't have any reports at Spotify when you're a staff engineer.
But you still find yourself in a place when you need to manage people, because you have this squad working on the projects, and you still need to maintain the relationships, the proper team atmosphere, and so on. So does it mean that like the higher up you're growing, the more those positions are closer to each other? Because like
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I'd say staff engineer is very close to senior engineer manager at Spotify. It's just where your focus lies, right? So senior managers, they do have reports. They need to be passionate about managing people and managing process, right? But they also do technical things, and they also make decisions based on technical knowledge. Same with staff engineer, but less on directly managing people, less investment in those kind of skills, but more investment into understanding the scope of the problem, making technical trade-offs. Also consulting your senior manager, and like, how many people do you think you need for this? Oh, I need 2 backend engineers and 1 really strong data engineer to set up the pipelines for a certain period of time, but then we will need more of other skills. So you need to learn all of those skills eventually.
Okay.
You might not use all of those at the current project.
Yeah. Okay. Let's reiterate. So, what skills do you definitely need to eventually grow into a staff engineer positions? Like
Yeah,
top five.
I'm just gonna pull out another book. This one is, oh, I'm blurring. It's called The
Staff
Staff
engineering
Engineer
path.
Path. Yeah, it's by Tanya Riley, and it basically goes through everything, all the skill sets that you need, all the situations that you can find yourself in, and it's more about the skill set. And there's another book called Staff Engineer by Will Larson. It's like the first book and the first online resource on staff engineers that appeared out there. This one is more about how do you grow, like the process into going from senior and like finding opportunities. In my opinion, definitely the very first skill that I use every day is communication. You need very clear. You need to know what to communicate to whom to make a project done. That's like the number one. That's most of my time spent on communicating, trying to clarify certain details in different documents, but communicating with stakeholders, with the leads on the project, trying to manage the sequencing of how things need to get done to be able to deliver. Like, we're blocked on something and you talk to a team to resolve that dependency. And then all of, tech expertise, definitely information management, because you have the context of the project in your head, and you need to know how to offload that to different media so that you can warm up the cache later when you actually need it, but that you don't lose information, you don't forget, that you can pull it up from a known place. Like, you need to know where stuff is.
Okay.
And of course, time management. How do you find time to do hands-on work? How do you find time to sit down, focus, and think about a particular topic so that nothing gets left out, instead of being pulled into meetings all the time, or Slack conversations, emails, document comments. Like, time management is very important.
Yeah, you need the time or slot for focus work, indeed.
Yeah, I just book it in my calendar. I basically say 3 hours blocked. You can't book anything here, and I usually write what I plan to do during the time.
Yeah, I do the same occasionally. Yeah, very cool. So we'll be wrapping up. So I want to remind everybody that in the description of this video you will find a Google form with a poll about like what is the biggest challenge in your career development. So please fill it in so we can come up with some solutions probably for that later. And yeah, keep updated. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. The last question to Slava today: what is your inspiration for the growing engineers? Like, what is your wish for them?
What I wish for growing engineers: never stop learning. Never stop learning. Even if you don't think you will move into a staff position, or you don't have the intent to, keep learning. Like, all these skills, they're very useful. Even if you don't want the additional responsibility and the additional burden of not seeing your thing shipped right now, and like possibly having a project that is going to span 2 years and get killed in the end, also possible. But all the skills that you learn along the way, and all those connections you make, and all the people you meet, that's actual value.
Cool. Thank you very much. So yeah, never stop learning. With us, it was Slava Savitskiy, staff engineer from Spotify, and we spoke about how to grow into one and what do they do, what skill set they need. Thank you very much. I hope it was useful. So please let me know what you think about the session in the comments. See ya actually this Friday, where we will speak with Anton Arkhipov about AI coding assistants. So don't miss that session as well. Thanks, everybody. See you all. Bye-bye.